Okay, we will go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us again for our webinar. Our title for our webinar is Google versus Microsoft Office, which is best for the classroom. My name is Ellen Connor. I am one of the trainers here at Newline. I also am a former classroom teacher who was lucky enough to teach in a district that allowed for me to use both the Google environment and the Microsoft Office. So today I'm going to share with you a couple of things about the different tools and how they can be used in the classroom. Now, I do want to point out that there is a Q&A feature within Zoom here. So if you have any questions as we go along, go ahead and type them in there. And when we get to the end, I'll go ahead and address them. So again, our title today is Google versus Microsoft Office, which is the best for the classroom. And I will tell you right off the bat, as far as Newline is concerned, it's not a competition. Either one of those platforms can be used on our panels. We are non-proprietary, so as long as you have access to them on a computer, you can use them on our panel. So again, I'm not going to do really a versus, but rather I'm going to talk about some of the features of both of them, because some of you are only allowed a Microsoft Office environment versus some of you that are only allowed the Google and G Suite environment. So I'll make sure to touch on both of those. So to start, what I want to talk about is presentation. So most of the time when we think of Google and Office, as far as the classroom's concerned, we think about using things like PowerPoint and Google Slides. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about those two platforms to start. And the first one I am going to talk about is PowerPoint. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up my PowerPoint here. And the tools I'm going to share, I do want to point out, these can be used with Word and Excel as well. So when it comes to Microsoft Office, what they have as far as some of their tools go is annotation. And the annotation tools that they have are built into their product. So it's built in, like I said, to Office as far as PowerPoint, Word, and Excel go. Now, to be able to access those tools, what you can do is select up on the top here. I have a button labeled File, Home, Insert, and Draw. I'm going to go ahead and select on the Draw button, and you can see from there I have a couple of different tools. So I have pens or markers, I have a pencil, and a highlighter. Now, if I touch on one of those tools, you can see that I can adjust the thickness. I can also pick different colors, and I also have the ability to pick a specific effect. For me, I prefer the glitter pens, so I use those on my on my PowerPoints here. Now, when it comes to erasing, you do have an eraser that's built in right next to my draw tools. However, because our panels as well as the Office products have something called object recognition, I can just use my hand. So if I take the back of my hand and swipe it over that writing, you will see it will erase it. Now, if I want to go back to writing, I can do the same thing. I just take a thin stylus, I use a mechanical pencil, anything plastic or wood will work, and you can see I can write from there. Now that's writing and erasing. Now when it comes to moving objects, what I'm going to use is just my finger. So if I tap on this Newline symbol here, I can move it from there. So again, you just need to tap and move from there. Now, some additional features that are built into PowerPoint are some of the assistive technology. So for instance, you can see right on to the right of my highlighter, I have add pens, ruler, and then I have a couple of categories under convert. And you'll see the first one I have is ink to text. So what I'm going to do is take my pen and I'm going to write a message here. And from there, I'm going to go over to my lasso select. That's going to be right next to my pens on the left side. When I touch on that, I'm going to draw a circle around my written text. When I'm done with that, I'm going to select the ink to text button that is under convert. And you can see my writing from my writing of hello turned into digital text. And I do have, there's a little squiggle on the right side here. I have the ability to revert back if I want to. So again, those are the ink to text. I also have the ability to use ink to shape. Now, as a former teacher, I know for me, I couldn't draw shapes all the time that met the students' criteria. So this would have been help. So if I'm going to draw a square here, again, I'm going to use my ink to shape, or my lasso select, I apologize. Draw a circle around my square, and then select on ink to shape. And you can see that it changed it into a square. Nice and easy there. Lastly, the tool I have is the ink to math feature. So here, if I were to write a very simple problem, and then I select the lasso select and draw a circle here and touch on ink to math, you will see if I can write the number 2, okay, it will convert that to digital text. So again, those are some of the tools that are, as far as writing go, that are available within Office products that go well with the panels. Now I do want to switch over to the Google environment when it comes to Google Slides. So I'm going to here bring up a Google slide from my drive here. And right now you can see that I have some measuring content. Now, when it comes to interacting with the content, I'm just going to use my finger to tap on my ruler, and I can move it around from here. Now, when it comes to writing, unfortunately, Google does not have any writing tools that are built into their products. So one way that I get around that is by using a tool within Windows. And that tool is called Windows Ink Workspace. It's going to be located in the bottom right-hand corner. So if you look at my screen, you will see the time, then a keyboard, and then a little pen. And if I touch on that pen, you'll see on the right side it says full screen snip. And when I touch on full screen snip, it's going to take a screenshot of whatever I have on the desktop at the time. Now from here, I can, with my 2 fingers, zoom in if I'd like to certain content. But then from here, I also can write. I just take, again, a thin stylus and draw from there. To erase, again, just use the back of my hand and swipe it over that content. Now, if you want to change colors or tools, you'll see at the top here, I have different writing tools. And if I touch on one, I can adjust the thickness down at the bottom, or I can pick a favorite color and use this on top of it as well. Now, when it comes to saving this content, what you'll have to do is select the floppy disk on the right side. And when I touch on that, you'll see that's going to bring up the File Explorer. So I can change the name of this file and I can put it to the specific drive or folder that I need to. And that is then going to be saved onto my computer that I have plugged into the panel. Now, I understand that not everyone has a Windows device. Some of you might be using Chromebooks. You might also be using MacBooks. You also, or actually you could use this tool within Windows as well. And that tool is the screen annotation tool. Now, if you've used our panels, you probably have discovered that there are light blue toolbars on both sides. Now, the very top button, that's going to be your screen annotation tool, and you can write over any content with it. So to write on my Google slide here, I am going to select on that top button. Again, it's a screen with a pen. And when I touch on that, let me go ahead and erase my previous content. You'll see down at the bottom, I have some tools for whiteboard. And with my thin stylus again, I can start to write on my content. Again, erasing just the back of my hand. And then when it comes time to save this, if I want to, down at the bottom, I have a camera with a square. And if I tap on that once, you'll see that it'll take a screenshot of that, and that screenshot gets saved to the panel directly. Now, to be able to access that later on, I'm going to go to the home screen of my panel, which is selecting the house. And from there, I'm going to select on the file viewer. And the file viewer just lets me pull up different pictures and files, but also add things there too. From here, I'm going to select on pictures, and you will see at the very top, internal storage if I touch on that, and I now have my screenshot of my Google slide. Now, that screenshot, like I said earlier, is saved onto the panel. Now, if you're wanting to share that with your students, that's not very useful. So what you can do is on the left side, under the Word File Commander, I have the Add Cloud button. And if I touch on that, I have the ability to log into things like my Google Drive or my OneDrive. So if I log into those and I head back to my pictures, there's going to be 3 dots next to those pictures where I touch on that, and I can share this. And I can share this to my cloud storage. For me, I am logged into my Google Drive, so if I touch on my Google Drive there and my drive, I can put that image into the specific folder that I would like to. Just select OK, and then you can see it's going to go ahead and save that. So now when I am at home watching Netflix while I'm just relaxing, I can go ahead and access that and add it to my Google Classroom if I want to there. So again, just to kind of wrap up that piece, those are just 2 examples of presentation tools, both PowerPoint as well as the Google Slides, and ways that you can use it in the classroom. Now, another topic that is very common that when it comes to in teaching, but as well as the panels, is the ability to use a whiteboard. And Google and Microsoft Office both have examples of whiteboards that you can use. Now, again, if you've used our panel, you probably know that there is a whiteboard that's built into the panel. But that whiteboard, all of those slides and things that you work on get saved locally to the panel. And some of you might find that you want the ability to have your whiteboard travel with you. So again, that's where a cloud-hosted whiteboard comes in handy. So the first cloud-hosted whiteboard I'm going to talk about is the Microsoft Whiteboard. And the Microsoft Whiteboard, it is a free application that you can download from the Microsoft Store. Now, you do need to have an Office 365 account to be able to log in. To be able to access my Microsoft Whiteboard, again, I can download it from the Microsoft Store, or I can select the pen on the right side here. Now, I've talked about this pen a couple of times, and some of you might be looking at your computer and saying, I don't have that pen. I'll show you how you can access that. So down at the bottom of my taskbar, I'm just going to find some space that doesn't have an app, any applications or anything there. And from there, I'm going to touch and hold on that taskbar. And once I release, you will see about the 5th button down is a button labeled Show Windows Ink Workspace. You're going to touch on that until it has a check mark, and then you will see it appear in your systems tray on the right side. So from here, again, I'm going to tap on my pen, and I'm going to get to my whiteboard. And the Microsoft Whiteboard, again, like I mentioned earlier, it is going to be cloud hosted. So over on the right side where it says EC for Alan Connor, that's where I would log into my Office 365 account. And here you will see that I have different whiteboards. And all of these whiteboards, as long as I have the application downloaded and I am logged in, I can go to my phone, I can go to my iPad, I can go to, down the hall and be able to open up this whiteboard. Now, what's nice about having all these different whiteboard pages is you can cover different topics. You can have different whiteboards for your different classes, your different subjects, or even for your professional development based on projects or content that you want to be able to share with everyone. So I'm going to start by creating my new whiteboard. I'm going to select on Create New Whiteboard. And then you'll see down at the bottom, I have different writing tools. This whiteboard is an infinite whiteboard. So if I take my writing tool and I've reached my end, I just take my finger to drag it across and I can keep on going. So again, this is going to be an infinite whiteboard that you can write forever. If I decide I want to bring everything together and look at it conceptually, just take 2 fingers and drag those together. Some of the other things you can do with this whiteboard is you have the ability with this plus sign to add images, text. You also can add sticky notes. So here I'm going to touch on my note, and since I taught kindergarten, we will talk about our animals, our land animals. So you've got my sticky note. I'm just going to touch it with my finger and drag it over to where I want and resize it just a bit. So students suggest a land animal is a dog. Absolutely. So I'm going to go ahead and write dog. And then I decide I want to give them a visual aid. So I'm going to touch on the plus sign here. And there is Bing image. So I can search for an image. And again, I'm just going to go ahead and write what I need. And you'll see a couple of cute dogs pop up. I'm going to select plus sign, and I've got my dog in the middle here. Now with this, the circle, I can resize it, flip it around. But then I'm going to drag this right next to my word dog, and you can see I now have a visual aid. Within the Microsoft Whiteboard, you can add additional content just on this plus sign. I can add things like PDFs. I can also add Word documents and PowerPoints. So if you find that you want to be able to bring in a lot of content into one piece here and have a collaborative aspect to it, you can do that there. One last piece as far as the Microsoft Whiteboard goes is you do have the ability to make this a collaborative piece amongst colleagues, but also amongst students. So here at the top, you'll see next to EC, the character with a plus sign. And if I touch on that, you can see I can search my organization for a contact. So I'm going to go ahead and search for one right now. So here we have Lauren. She is just down the hallway from me. And I'm going to invite Lauren to my whiteboard session. Again, Lauren's not going to be in my environment, but Lauren still has the ability to interact with my content here. So again, this is great for students, but it's also for when teachers are planning and you're not all together. And one last feature is the 3 lines on the side here. If I touch on that, you can see that I can post this to Teams. So if you are an environment that's using Teams for communication, you can post this there to be able for everyone to be able to access it as well. So that is the Microsoft Whiteboard. There are lots of tools that I probably didn't even begin to scratch the surface with, but those are some that can get you started. Now, obviously, we're talking about Google as well as Office. So we also have a whiteboard available within Google. And that whiteboard is called the Jamboard. And I'm going to go ahead and open up Google Chrome here. And I'm going to find it with next to the E there, images, and then there is the 9 circles. If I touch on that, and I'm going to go all the way down to Jamboard. And to start creating my first Jamboard, or my first whiteboard, I'm just going to touch on the plus sign in the bottom right. So you can see I've already started. Now to change the background on your Jamboard, you can see in the top left is the backgrounds button. You can do things like graphing paper, you also lined paper, but you also can do our old-time chalkboard if you want to. Now on the left side, there is a pen tool. So if I touch on that, maybe change the exact tool I'm using as far as the style and then a color. And then from there, ooh, that's pretty light. Let's switch that one. There we go. So again, I have my whiteboard. To erase, I will use the eraser that's underneath the pen. And I can use my stylus to erase, or I can use my finger, whatever your preference is. If you look on the left side, you also have sticky notes. So if I touch on that, and I can pick a fun color, and I'm gonna tap on the middle, and then down at the right side, I have my keyboard. I'm just gonna touch on that to bring up keyboard, and we will add another header. Oop, let's spell that correctly. There we go, and save it. So you can see I have my sticky note. Again, I can move this one around. I can make it larger. But just like with the Microsoft Whiteboard, I can write on it, but I can also insert images. So I'm going to go ahead and write dog here. And then underneath the sticky notes on the left side, we have the insert button. And I can insert a photo that I might have already on my computer. I can search Google for one, or if I have one to saved already on my Google Drive, I can pull that up. I'm going to go ahead and do a search here. And we'll go with, oh, that little guy. And you can see here again, touch on it, I can resize it. And then I'm going to add him right next to my text there. And then lastly, when it comes to Jamboard, we have the laser. So if I want to quickly be able to draw students' attention to content, I can use that. Now, if you want to add additional whiteboard pages, up at the top, there is the arrow, and you can go ahead and touch on that, and we'll create a new one for you. And one thing I forgot to mention as far as the writing tools, during my use of the Jamboard, I decided to download the Jamboard app on my phone as well as my iPad. And I discovered there that there are some assistive technology tools on the application. So I can do things like ink to text as well as ink to shape. And what I did is I had my Jamboard page open as well as the app on my iPad, and I was able to write on my iPad and have that content shared right up onto the panel. So if you are fortunate to be able to use those devices, that's a great solution as well. So that really wraps up our kind of basic overall of Google versus Microsoft Office and ways you can use it on the panel. Now, if this is kind of your first introduction to some of the tools, please go ahead and feel free to reach out to me. My contact information is in the bottom right-hand corner. I do webinar training, so we can set up on one-on-one session where I can walk through a couple of other scenarios that you can use in the classroom with your panel. I am now going to go ahead and head over to our Q&A and see if there's any questions. And one of the questions that was asked, which panel I am using the RS. This is the RS Plus, which is our newest panel that has Android 8 running on it. And this one we see really primarily in the pre-K through 12th to higher ed grades, but it can be used anywhere. There was a question if I could wireless screencast from any device as far as a Windows device or a Chromebook. Yes, you can. Now, what I suggest is this screen sharing button here on the home screen. When you touch on that, go ahead and get this launched. Just to give you a visual aid there. So a Windows device, what you can do is you can download the Display Note app, or you can use that URL. Now with that, I will tell you my preference is to use the app to download that. And the reason is when you download the app on a Windows device is you have bidirectional touch. So that means is you could essentially leave your laptop in the back of the classroom, walk up to the front, and you can still navigate around. Now, for a Chromebook, what you would use is that URL. You can add the extension on there. With that, you do not have bidirectional touch, so you still need to manage your slides and presentations from the device level. However, if you want to be able to write over that content, you always have access to the screen annotation tool that's on the side there. All right, that looks like it wraps up our questions for today. Again, if you are looking for some further training or some more information, or you just need some help on some of the things with your panel, go ahead and reach out to me in the bottom right-hand corner. I do also want to mention that this session is being recorded, so we will make sure to add that to our website. Thank you for joining me for our webinar today, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.